going to be affirming, calling that thing that is not as though it were. So welcome to Serendipity Sunday. This is a weekly presentation by Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. I'm the facilitator, Greg Stanton, also known as Asar. Thanks for joining. Here's a few things I just want to cover with you all before we go into this morning's teaching. So if you're tuning in via YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button, followed by the notification bell. Don't miss out when I go live. Also, make your comments in the chat section. If you're on the YouTube this morning, go ahead and type your comments in, say good morning, whatever you want to say. I'll circle back and I'll address them a little later this morning. To the Zoomers, those who are in the sanctuary in the Zoom room, welcome. Make sure you utilize the chat functions this morning. It is somewhat participatory. If you have a question, you can hit that hand, and that way I'll see your hand. I'll make sure of that. If I don't acknowledge your hand, type something in there, because sometimes I just don't see the hand go up. Lastly, if you desire to make an offering to the ministry, before we get started, I'd like to just put this out here. You can go to oasisspiritualcenter.com, or if you got the email this morning, there is an image that if you click on the heart, you will be able to do so. For those of you who are on the YouTube channel, I will drop this over there for you. So that way, you know, if you really want to make an offering, you will have the opportunity to do that. And I'm not going to make more of that than that. So there you go. So the YouTubers, they got it, and the individuals who are on the Zoom room. So let's go into this morning's message. Let me make sure I don't have anything going on over here with individuals having problems getting in or anything of that sort. No, it's good to see everybody popping in, saying grace, peace, good morning. Everyone seems to appear to be doing well. First-time visitors, we welcome you to Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. Yes, divine living. The whole premise of this ministry is to empower those who tune in, tap into what's going on here, to live a life that is more meaningful, to also master this thing called life. So this morning's message is entitled, Don't Ponder When Under Pressure. Don't ponder when under pressure. And if you saw the image this morning, it was a man in the thinking position, and depending on how you looked at it, you either saw him disintegrating or you saw him solidifying. Now, that's part of our message this morning, that things take on the meaning that we give them. So that is important that you hold on to that thought. Things take on the meaning that we give them. And sometimes the meaning that we give a thing is not the intended meaning that was sent by the sender. But you must know that how you filter things determine what you see, what you believe, and what you'll experience in this thing called life. So there are certain things we do, like pondering, that have a direct impact on what we experience in life. Yes, there are certain practices, knowing and unknowing, and we do them knowingly or unknowingly, that says a lot about your faith level, says a lot about what you believe, says a lot about your philosophy in life. So when we talk about pondering, this is dangerous, in that it's a dangerous activity, and it reflects where your trust lies. Now, there's a difference between pondering and meditating. Meditating has a more of a positive connotation to it, a peaceful kind of connotation to it. Pondering is usually the result of a level of concern. And then the more you can concern about that thing, the deeper you go into the pondering. And we go into pondering oftentimes to pull up an answer from our file storage of our brains. But we need to learn to go into meditation. When you find yourself in a betwixt, the best thing you can do is be still and get into a meditative place, a place of quietness, a place where you can go inside. So this morning, I thank those of you who have decided to join me for this message entitled, Don't Ponder When Under Pressure. So let's start with some definitions. A lot of times when we are pondering, we're thinking heavily on something. We're operating from what we will say as our mind, but we're not operating from our mind. We're operating from our sensory self. We're we're attempting to go into the recesses of the file cabinets of our brain and to pull out some information that's logical that will help us with our situation. So when we talk about logic, we're talking about being rational or irrational. Now, the reality is when you're talking about being rational, it's based on or in accordance with reasoning and logic. It's based on what research has said. It's based on or shown. It's based on experiences. But sometime in life, you will come to a crossroad of a place where you've never been. And that's usually where we find ourselves pumping the brakes and pondering because we're trying to register what is life showing us? What is the stimuli that we're dealing with? What is the environment showing us so that way we can drop all that information into our computer system and then we can determine which way to go. But sometimes things can be so real and different for you that it causes you to get steeped into a level of pondering. And I say in my message that pondering can lead to a petrification, to be petrified, like you ever go to the petrified forest when something is becomes statuish, the life is out of it, but it has the form. And many of us become petrified and we're like a deer caught in the headlights. You become fear tends to be one thing that petrifies us and it causes us to act in a way that is shouldn't be known amongst those who are divine spiritual beings. So when we talk about rational, that is based on or in accordance with reason, logic, the five sensory realm, or irrational which is not logical or reasonable. Now that puts you in a dilemma because we all want to do that which is rational, but we really are called to walk in an irrational way. We're not called to walk according to sight. We're not called to walk according to logic. We're not called to walk according to that which is reasonable, because oftentimes that which is logical is steeped inside of a philosophy or steeped inside of laws that are contrary to the laws of the universe. So we're going to kind of look at that this morning. The reason why you don't want to really lean into living a life based on rationality, because it can get you in trouble. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us that trust in the Lord, or trust in the law. The ancient word for Lord is law. Trust in the law with all thine heart. That is that place that emotes that energy, that frequency comes from the heart. And so trust in the law with all of your heart and lean not into thy understanding. See, many of us ponder. When you're pondering, you're leaning deeply into your understanding. You're leaning into that which you know and trying to use what you know to help you deal with this new situation. Well, it's a new situation. Some of what you have experienced in the past can be transferred over to this situation, but you got to learn to be present to the right here, right now, and not try to bring what has happened into the present in order to make sense of this present, to take an action. You have to learn to take action, not from a place of a rational place, but you really have to take action from an irrational place. And what is this irrational place that I'm alluding to this morning? The irrational place that I'm alluding to is that we must learn to walk within the intuitive essence of who we are. See, animals operate in logic, or they operate inside of what is known as instinct. We have a level of instinct also, but we shouldn't operate according to instinct. Now, when there is a situation that jumps off and it's a life or death, your instinctual self just helps you to respond, to get out of that situation. But you shouldn't live according to instinct. You should, because you're always waiting on something to happen or almost happen, and then you respond. But when you are a divine spiritual being, you learn to walk according to intuition. So intuition, for those who are not in this conversation, can often come across as you being irrational, because what you're going to do doesn't add up. What you're going to do does not appear to be the right way. But the word tells us there's a way that appears to man, but the end thereof is destruction. And so part of what this conversation is coming from this morning is I recently saw a movie, and I recommend the movie. It's called The Woman King. Great movie for what a movie is all about. The cinematography was great. There's different levels of messaging there, but that message will take on the meaning that you give it. And many times people just see the meaning of, oh, it's just another Black movie. We're celebrating Black queens. But there's some diabolical messages implanted in that now. And they'll take on meanings for those people who are inside of those things. I'll leave that there. We'll unpack that sometimes in the future when everyone has seen the movie. I don't want to give a spoiler. But this morning, I want you to begin to look at, do you spend an inordinate or inordinate amount of time pondering? Do you find yourself caught in between two decisions? Do you find yourself vacillating from this thing to that thing? One moment, you know exactly what to do. The next moment, you're like, oh, no. So you're a double-minded person. For the word tells us that a double-minded person has instability. So if you're unstable, you can't carry the thing. You can't carry the vision that you have. You're going to spill it. It'll never make it to fruition. So we have to learn how to walk in the Spirit. We must learn how to walk intuitively. We got to learn how to trust in the law, trust in the Lord with all our heart, and that we not lean to our understanding. To lean into is the place of safety. You lean on something when you are like exhausted. You find something you can lean on. When you're feeling as though you might be maybe going to pass out, you lean against the wall. So to lean into your understanding is say, this is a place that you find as safe. How does faith work without pondering peace? Alan, I like that question. How does faith work without pondering? And he said peace. So now, faith works through meditation. Okay, that is, when you're pondering something, you're in the realm of the sensory realm. When you're meditating, you're shutting down the sensory realm and you go into the silence. That's a great question. That's a great question this morning, Alan, because many times in America, we have to know this, that every word we use takes on the meaning that the receiver gives it. And sometimes we have to have our vocabulary expanded, one, to the true etymology of a word. What was its intended use? Because we live in a day that people have cast off restraints. They use words the way they want to use them. Like, I'm a boss, and you don't have no employees, you don't have nobody following you, but you're a boss, okay? Or saying things that's dope. You know, dope is not really meant to be a word to be used in that manner, but we know dope means it's fly. Like last night I got on the elevator. When I came back from eating, and there was a young lady with her friends and a little person with them. And when I stepped onto the elevator, the one young lady said, she said to me, the word she used, oh, you look fresh as a peppermint. So the expressions, we know a peppermint is meant to be, maybe you will suck a peppermint if you have something aftertaste in your mouth, or if you are dealing with you ate garlic or something and you want to have a fresher breath. So people take words and they play with them. They're creative with them. But we also have to know that words are powerful, and how people interpret your words determine if you are a great communicator. And so what we have to understand, as Alan was showing here, pondering and meditation. And so when we understand to ponder means to think, Okay. But when you go into meditation, you're not going there to think. One of the things we try to do when we go into meditation is we try to clear our minds. We try to settle the thoughts, the monkey mind. And one of the things that I found to work well is to focus on your breath. As you focus on the breath coming in and coming out, it shuts down the thought process. And it's practically impossible to think and focus on breath. So now you're focusing and you're quieting the monkey mind. So that's important. Alan, thanks for putting that out there this morning. I hope that was sufficient to cover that. So we have to move from walking according to a rational walk, and we really need to learn to walk irrationally. The term for irrational means not logical and not reasonable. If you're a divine spiritual being, you're not called to walk according to logic. You're not called to walk according to reason. You're called to walk according to laws, the laws of the universe. So trust in the laws with all your heart. And lean not into thine own understanding, leaning not into the rationalness. And so when we look at religion, is about rationale, trying to rationale, to trying to deal with something that is not rational in a very rational way. And then we come up with formulas, we come up with traditions. And the word says that the traditions of men make the word of God, of source, of nature, the natures of no impact. So give you a couple of examples. We can talk about Lot's wife. She ponders something, and the word says that, Source had, according to the Bible, Source had decided to destroy Sodom because of the activities therein. And so in this day and age, we have a big problem with this whole conversation of what goes on in Genesis chapter 19. But in Genesis chapter 19, Lot had been told what to do, to leave a place. And many of you who are listening to me this morning, you've been told what to do. You may say, well, I haven't heard God's voice. But look what life is showing you. You keep doing the same things and you continue to get the same outcome. Life is showing you that there needs to be another way. So when I look here in Genesis 19, verse 25, it says, thus he destroyed these cities and the entire plain, including all the inhabitants of the city and everything that grew on the ground. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. Now, we know that salt is a preservative. And so pondering is like salt. It preserves you. Whatever you think on, as a man thinketh, so does he become. So if you're thinking on something, trying to figure something out, but you can't get an answer, the more anxious you become, the more confused you become. It's as a result of what you've been thinking. And so when we look at Lot's life, she turned back to the thing that was familiar. She leaned back into her rational self. She leaned back into the thing she was married to. And so you have to wonder, you have to look at it also. Am I turning back to things that I am married to when I go into my rational state? Am I going back to what has been, not realizing that what was good then may not be good for now? Realizing that you can't put God on a formula based on how things happened yesterday. The way you deal with things today should be different than you dealt with them yesterday. You should have a different level of maturity today. Yesterday, you may have rushed to the medicine cabinet. Today, you may say, no, I'm not rushing to the medicine cabinet. I'm standing on the word that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that I am healed, that I am walking in divine health, putting that thing in present tense, standing in that thing and meditating on that thing, affirming that thing, and let that thing come to pass. But we see that Lot's wife, she was tied to what was pleasing to her. And many times we don't want to let go. We don't want to grow. We don't want to expand. We don't want to even look at anything different than what we've experienced because we want to preserve that thing. But you can't grow if you want to preserve what you think you know. You only can grow if you're willing to expand. What you know is like yeast. It will expand if you don't contain it into a formed space that says, this is how it is. Things take on the meaning we give them. Now, here, Betty. Hey, Betty, good to see you. I am in that place right now that you are speaking of. I can't seem to quiet my thoughts while trying to breathe, while trying to do breath work, going into the silent place. Okay, so just got to get yourself in the place where you have to continue when your thoughts fall off after maybe 10 seconds. Or thoughts begin to come back, you just start over. Easy breezy. We have to understand that this thing that we do does not have to be done in perfection out the door. But as you take on these spiritual practices, they work if we work them. Okay, sometimes we want things to happen, and I'm not saying you, Betty, but all of us, we want things to happen quick, fast, in a hurry. Well, they've already happened. The moment you decree a thing, declare a thing, and you hold that thing as though it has happened, it's done. But we become frustrated because we want to see it with the natural eyes. But we are told that we'll walk by faith, not by sight. The faith is the knowingness that I've applied the laws and they shall manifest. So when we look at Job's wife, not Job's wife, we look at Lot's wife. She was preserved because she turned back. She moved back into that rational state. I can show you a lot of examples in the Bible where individuals leaned into the rational state. And we live in a world in which people are making decisions on rationality, making decisions based on both votes, what we call the democratic way. There's a story that's one of my favorite stories found in the book of Numbers, where the children of Israel were already promised. They was going towards the promised land. God knew their destiny. Now, this is something for somebody. Your destiny is always tied to a destination. And Source will never send you somewhere to destroy you. Source sends you somewhere where you will now be able to experience another level. So Source had told the children of Israel, I'm taking you to the promised land. And before he took all of them in, he found the influencers. So that's why you got to know something about your influencers. You got to know something about your leaders. You got to know what they're made of. So look here. 12 leaders of Israel were chosen. They were sent into the promised land to come back with a report. 10 of the 12 leaders came back with a report based solely on the rationale of what they saw. They said, yes, we did see that it was a land flowing with milk and money. Flowing with milk and honey. And they said, we even bought back grapes. Look here. But then they said, but that conjunction serves a function. Many times your but gets in the way. Big old butts, little butts are butts. Anytime you insert that but, you are now putting the question of belief. So they said, yes, all of those things were true. Okay. But we were as grasshoppers in their eyesight. So things take on the meaning. Now, the giants didn't see them or they would have destroyed them. So for them to say that we were as grasshoppers in their eyesight, that was their own projection. The scriptures does not say that the giants saw them. And many times our own projections, the things we've given meaning to, dictates how we respond. They said, 10 of them said, we were as grasshoppers, the masses. So I'm saying to you, are you listening to the mess of the masses? Many times what the masses are saying, they're going in the wrong way. I had this serious dream last night. Very serious. Matter of fact, it was so serious that I woke up hearing myself talk to them. I was speaking loud over this crowd. I was trying to tell the crowd that there was something behind what they were being shown. In this dream, there was the Black church was being observed by the white church. And in this dream, they were attempting to have the Black church take on the way they do things. And in this dream, they were looking to get the leaders to speak to the people. And so I was finding myself having to really speak in a loud voice because the leaders was attempting to lead the people. It was almost like the situation with Joshua and Caleb. They had to speak louder than the 10 voices. See, the masses may cause you to have misery. When you follow after the masses, you will find yourself in a miserable place. Joshua and Caleb, 2 verses 10. And in a democratic way, you don't win. But Joshua and Caleb said, we can do this thing. Let's move forward. Because those giants didn't take on a meaning to them that the giants took on to the other 10. They were steeped inside of knowing whose they were. And if Source sent them there to see, Source never shows you something that it doesn't want to deliver to you. But in order to get it into this realm, you must be willing to do what you must do. They had to cross the Jordan. They had to go to the place of the illusion. Many times our fears are false evidence appearing real. Our fears are things we're looking at, things we've given meaning to, but are meaningless. But if you take on the rational way, they become meaningful. When you move into irrationality of walking according to the Spirit, walking according to spiritual laws, they work if you work them. Job, I'm going to use that example. Job was a man. If you read the book of Job is really the first book of the Bible. Now, many times you may say, well, why are they in the order they are in? You need to study that for yourself. We believe things because those who we esteemed highly, maybe our parents, our families of origin, the teachers, we just assume that they would not tell us anything that wasn't true. But a personal truth is not a universal truth. Most of what we hold are personal truths. They're not universal truths. A universal truth is a truth that applies to all people in this earth realm. Personal truths are truths that apply to your ethnicity, your cultural group, your fraternity, your church, your denomination. But we need to move beyond those personal beliefs if we want to walk in this thing and have mastery of this thing to find what are the universal beliefs are. So we find that in Job was a man who had everything going for him. And Source was approached according to the scripture, by Satan and said, why does Job serve you? And my question is, many people I found in the church are only serving God to avoid something. Accept Christ as their personal savior to avoid hell, okay? To go to heaven. So we're not really, if you're a true spiritual person, you're not doing that for the gain. You're doing it because it's your design. In order to truly be who you've been called to be, to walk out your soul path, your soul agreements, you must have a soul alignment. You cannot walk into the thing that Source desired to come here to do and be and have and express through you without Source, without Spirit, without the Ka. Now, so Job had a challenge. God didn't put any of these things on Job. Job put these things on himself by the meaning that he had given things. One of the things that one of his philosophical meanings was that if you do something wrong, God was going to punish you. And in order to appease God, you make a sacrifice. Here's one thing. If God is a spirit, what can God do with any of the material things that we offer to it in order to appease it? The most important thing that we think we have is life. So we don't offer our life. We take the life of animals and other things in order to appease God. Because they saw God, the meaning of God was a mean, angry being. Now, the meaning of God is dictated by the environment that you grew up in. So the northern cradle of civilization had a very different meaning of God than those who were in the southern cradle. The people of the sun saw God as a loving, giving, kind God that every day when this ball rose up on the eastern sky, it emitted an energy level that brought things back to life. Whereas when you live in an environment where you can't experience the sun because of the elements, you stay inside, you're always covered up, and the elements are looked at as a God destroying man, always contending against man. And so we have to understand that the meanings of things is dictated by what you give them. I was in a conversation yesterday. I was on the elevator and it was very sunny outside. And somebody said, "Ooh, I got to get y'all better get some sunscreen." And I just boldly said, "I don't need sunscreen. I'm a person of the sun." And they looked at me. I said, then she says, "Well, I was told that everybody needs to protect their skin." Everybody, if you define everybody as somebody who is not you, that's correct. And so here's the point I'm making. I had to clarify for that individual, that's not my reality. The sun does not have that meaning to me. The sun works with me. I went on to a quick diatribe in that elevator with non-melanated people say, "Hey, that's why we have melanin at the level that we are in, because where we came from." So it was a teachable moment. So I'm saying to you, I could have very easily ran out and say, "Oh, because they said it, I need to get some sunscreen." I don't need no sunscreen. No. Every person needs to look at what meanings they give to things. Because the meaning you give to a thing doesn't always mean that is the etymology of that thing or the true meaning of that thing. So when we look at Job, we see Job said, "For the thing I feared." So he wasn't in the proper frequency with God. He was on a whole nother frequency. The thing that he feared most has overtaken me. And I was dreaded, and what I dreaded has befallen me. What he dreaded, that means the thing he pondered, pre-adventure, my children has done something wrong, so I'm going to get up today and I'm going to offer a sacrifice. And see, what you ponder, what you dread, you're attracting to yourself. So you have to watch what you say. You can suggest destruction. You might tell somebody, "Be careful, don't knock that over." And guess what they do? They knock it over. Because you have suggested, and it has caused them to respond in a way that is not how they would normally operate. Now they're becoming super sensitive how they move and say, "I don't want to knock it over." And guess what you say you don't want to do? It's like jumping double dutch. If you say you can do that, you can get in and do it. But if you say, "I can't jump double dutch," you can get tied up in the rope. It is really that simple. Your world takes on the meaning assigned to the words you speak. So the word tells us that we can't ponder the wrong thing. Psalms 1 and 2. For those of you, I want to tell you, you got to be careful who you're hanging with. "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked." A wicked person is one who is not operating on your level, your frequency. It doesn't mean that somebody is diabolical. Birds don't hang out with dogs. Come on now. Fish don't hang out with cows. Catfish don't hang out with carp. We have to understand that you have to know your design. And if you're designed as a divine spiritual being, you're best to find other divine spiritual beings, others who define themselves in accordance with that. He says, "Blessed is the man blessed is the man, male or female, who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked or set foot on the paths of the sinner." You don't go the way that they say go. The sinner is the one who misses the mark. Okay? They miss the mark. Why are you following somebody that is missing the mark? For the word says, "All have sinned and come up short." Guess what? All of us have at some point missed the mark and come up short. But the missing of the mark don't mean you're regulated to hell or regulated to being less than a son or daughter of source. Missing the mark simply means there's a lesson you need to learn. And it also says, and you do not sit in the seat of mockers, individuals who make mockery of others. When I see a person that is getting a life lesson, I don't make mockery of them. I'm mindful that, except for the grace of God, there go I. If I thought the same way, things would take on the same manifestations. But verse 2 says, blessed is the man that delights in the law of the Lord. And that's what this ministry is all about. Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living is about teaching individuals how to delight in the law. And you can't delight in something you don't know. Okay, the law of the laws. Understanding this, that you know all the principles work if you work it. And it says, check this out. And on its law, this man, this woman meditates day and night. So when you're in between, don't know which way to go, you find the law and you meditate on it. Take it into your silence. Take it into your sleep. So when you're in between, you don't know which way to go. You don't ponder. But the word says in Philippians 4:8 that we are to meditate. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, find those things, those universal truths, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, we're talking about here, find those things that are noble, those things that are just, whatever things are pure, unadulterated, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good report. To say that there's giants in the land and we can't do that, that's not a good report. That's a rational report. An irrational report was a report that Joshua and Caleb said, even though there's giants in the land, we have been told just to go spot and taste and see that the law is good, what is assigned for us. It says, if there be any virtue, if there be anything praiseworthy, that's what you meditate on. You don't meditate on the doctor's report. You don't meditate on the pink slip. You don't meditate on the pending doom that is being forecasted. No, you meditate on the good report. What's the good report? The good report is you calling that thing that is not as though it were. But first and foremost, you go into the silence. You go into the meditation. You see what source shows you. You hear what source is saying. Remember, Jesus said, y'all that follow the Bible, and a historical Jesus, he said, I do no thing except I see, I hear. There's a spiritual law there that we must see and hear and respond accordingly. So you don't have to keep pondering. Move your pondering to a state of meditation. And here's what you meditate on. You meditate on a thing desired, not the destructive thing that you are seeing in your mind's eye, not the thing that has been projected on you. We live in a world where there's a lot of auto suggestions. And for those who did not sign up for the 12-week course, Mastery of the Mind, you're going to miss it. It's too late to get into the course, but you're going to miss it. You're going to miss the fact that the mystery is in learning how to operate from the mind versus operating from the soulish realm. So you got to learn to meditate on those things that you call into being. But you also know that you don't call into existence something that shouldn't be called into existence. You also know that some things you've got to go through because you grow through those things. You don't use the word as an abracadabra stick that to change situations so you can enjoy them. No, know this. In whatever state you're in right now, find a level of contentment. And how do you find contentment? By finding gratitude, because it can be worse than it is. But now, finding contentment doesn't mean you're complacent. Doesn't mean that you're okay, I'm going to be here. This is my lot in life. No, you know this. The universal law is this too shall pass. Ecclesiastic says there's a time. Everything has its time. Everything lives and everything dies. Everything comes and everything goes. Everything. Nothing in this realm is permanent. Nothing. Wow, I hope you got something out of it this morning. So my statement to you this morning, don't ponder. Pondering leads to petrification. You can be petrified, and if you petrified, you become immobile. And if you become immobile, you be no good. Let me see what I got over here. We're going to take a moment here, and we're going to, I'm right at 9:47. So I'm going to address some dialogue. So if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you already know the answer, then don't ask a question trying to prove something. A question is for clarity. All right. Again, while I wait for you to get your question together, if you want to have a dialogue with me, write your question down so we can move through it and stay on point. If this ministry has been a blessing to you, if this message has been a blessing to you and you found value in it, consider sowing a seed into this ministry. Not sowing because we need, not sowing because of greed, but I operate according to laws. I operate according to spiritual principles. Give and it shall be given. I have given to you this morning, and there's a level of expectation that there's something that will be returned to this ministry as a circulating process. So if you desire to give, you can go to the link and you can go to the giving page, and if once you're there, you determine what platform best fits your situation and sow your seed. You're sowing your seed not because of need, not because of greed, but you're sowing because you're living a life that is principled. In all you're getting, get an understanding. Learn. Don't let the world tell you all this stuff about now you got people saying you shouldn't give 10%. You could. There's a reason for that. Okay. I'm not going to go into that at this moment. Follow your spirit. It works when you work it. All right, let me see if I got any questions over there. Okay, and if you got a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll look here to see if there's any hands raised. Okay, I'm looking there. See if there's any comments here. Courtney says it was his failure to emote appropriate resonance. That's correct. We talk about fear. Fear. A couple of weeks ago, I had a Rhema dropped on me. Fear is failure. F, to emote. Failing to emote appropriate resonance. Failing to emote. F, failing, emote, E, A, appropriate resonance. I know we say fear is false evidence appearing real. That's part truth. Here's another part of the truth. Fear is simply failing to emote or resonate, okay? Failing to emote appropriate resonance. You're not resonating with what source has shown you, what source has said to you, and as a result, you move into the rational state. And when you move into a rational state, your life becomes erratic. But if you walk irrationally, and the walking of the irrationally means this, you walk according to the spirit. When you walk in the spirit, you won't please the lust of the flesh, the sensory realm. Okay, that's important. Thank you for reminding us of that. So again, fear is failing or failure, emote appropriate resonance. Failing to emote appropriate resonance. Failing to emote the appropriate resonance or frequency. So you got to stay on the God frequency. Thank you. I am that place. Okay, I got that from Betty. So I see here. So I look back. Is there anything else by anyone? Let me check over here on our YouTube channel to see what kind of dialogue going on there. Hey, JC, majestic journey. This ministry has continued to be a blessing to me. Seeding to activate the law of circulation. That's right. Circulate, circulate, circulate. Anytime I expend resources, I be it $1, be it $1,000, whatever amount. I say as money goes in, money comes. If money goes out, money comes in. As little money goes out, little money comes in. As big money goes out, big money comes in. Now I'm putting a demand on the universe. Give and it should be given to you. Press down, shaking together. Should I open up the windows of heaven? Okay, heavens is in your mind. I'll expand your understanding. I'll move you from a poverty mindset to a prosperous mindset. Awesome. Okay, so let me see. Good morning, Glenda. Good to see you. Linda, good to see you. Let me see what else is out there. Okay, so it looks like that's all that's out there this morning. So that's all I have. I don't see any hands came up. So that means everybody got what they need to get. They understand.